All right. Well, welcome everyone to day two. We're so excited to see so many of you joining us live again. And of course, we'll have a lot of people watching this recording. And we had a lot of people join us just yesterday evening. So if you did join us yesterday, be sure to watch the replay video from yesterday. Alina made a really yummy macadamia cheese sauce, and we talked a lot about sugar addiction and some of the science behind it. So yeah, be sure to watch that replay.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, we're just so I don't know. I feel like we're just on this track lately, me and Caitlin, with we just did a 5-day challenge with Natural Zing. So many people are responding. I think springtime, people kind of coming back out, even after a year of being like in isolation. Like I guess people are just like ready for life again, and it's such a good timing. And so we really want to share with you guys some of the knowledge we have and even just facts that we have looked up about like really what sugar's doing in the body because Caitlin, you probably hear this too. A lot of people are like, oh, well, it's no big deal. I'm going to have some birthday cake or I'm going to have some ice cream. It's just one time. And, that can be fine for some people because our metabolisms are all different. Like if you are a young man 30 or under, 35 or under, you might be able to handle sugar a lot better. But what you and I have both noticed as women, and especially as we age, I mean, I'm a lot farther ahead than you are, but I just can't handle sugar anymore. So especially if you're over 40, and Caitlin, you're not, you're just early 30s, you really need to start paying attention to your sugar intake if you want to experience the benefits of living long and vital and, just feeling good for the rest of your life. So it's not a sacrifice. In my mind, the sacrifice is giving up your health. The sacrifice is feeling sluggish and wanting to stay in bed and feeling cranky and arguing with your partner because you feel so bad. That's the sacrifice to me.
Yeah, and really, we know you're here because you're so ready to commit to loosening that grip that sugar might have on you. This challenge isn't for those of us who still think sugar is contributing to our optimal health or don't have these serious cravings. And Elena and I, again, like we mentioned yesterday, we've both been there and we've both gone through it. And that's why we're here to help you too. You're here for a reason. And it's time. Spring is also the time of rebirth. And I feel like that's the renewed energy that we're all ready for. And sometimes we need, the change of season or a start date to really, commit to our health long term. So use this 3 days as your start date. And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that everyone wrote their intentions for their why on why they want to give up sugar. And, maybe it's not forever for you. Maybe you just are ready for a little bit of a detox or a break. And that's great too. I guarantee once you get that sugar out of your life, you won't want to add it back in. And like Elena, we and I have both had slip ups along the way. And that's not it's not about being perfect. It's about really trying something different, especially if what you're doing isn't working.
Yeah, and especially giving yourself a chance. Now, I know that, kind of sometimes for some of you listening, it can feel daunting, like giving up sugar. Don't think of it as forever. Just give yourself a chance. We're going to be offering this 30-day detox starting May 7th. So that could be 30 days that you're like, okay, I'm just going to try this for 30 days. And what we want you to do, Caitlin mentioned like writing in your journal a second ago, or, writing down your intentions for these 3 days. And like if you're starting with us today, then today can be day one. And just going for 3 days and noticing how you feel. And it might not all be, sunshine and roses. You might feel a little bit groggier or starting to notice more cravings. And so it is kind of something that, you have to pay attention to. But if you're eating really satisfying, healthy fats, we really believe that like healthy fats are the key and not keeping on putting in sweet stuff, but like letting your body switch over to fat burning mode and letting your body like let go of these sugars and just talking with your body. And that's the other thing is making friends with your body. Because I feel like, Caitlin, I'm sure you've experienced this too. Like we feel like we're separate from our body. Like, oh, my body this and my body that. And I hate my body and I don't like the way this looks. And like, we are our body. Like it's part of us. So what about making friends and just talking to the body and going, hey, we're going to do this for a little while and I want to get on board with you and like help me. because your body is a being that really wants love. Think of it as a child that you just need to love. Think of it, it's like your mind is going to parent your body for a while and do the best thing for it. How about that? That's a really good way to look at it.
I really love that. It's so much about our mindset when we're, trying to commit to something new. And I saw this meme yesterday and it said, we're not put on this planet to get a paycheck and to lose weight. Like there's so much more to life, like, and taking care of your vessel. And it's like freedom when you can feel like food doesn't have a grip on you. And it is so possible. And we're not on this planet just to lose weight. We're here to enjoy life and indulge in pleasures and all of that. And when we're feeling good, it just makes everything so much easier. When I'm living in joy and pure joy, as our company is, like everything works better. My relationships are better. The business is better. I feel better. I love like everything around me. So it's all about finding that within yourself. And we believe that sugar and getting off sugar can really, really help you get there.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, Caitlin, we're not saints. And so over the last 22 years of living this way and having given up sugar and cured my candida and all those things, I would have times when I would eat it. Even just coconut bliss has agave, which is like high fructose corn syrup. Let's face it, agave is not your friend. And I would wake up the next morning. So instead of having an alcohol hangover, I would have a sugar hangover. And so that's a really real thing too. When you eliminate something, you notice when you add it back in, like, oh boy, this really is messing with me and I didn't even know it, because I like a lot of people that I know, like just kind of being dull is normal. I wouldn't say a lot because a lot of my friends are super healthy and vibrant, but there's people I know that like, whatever, like that's just kind of their general mood and they don't even know what's waiting for them on the other side of giving up these addictions.
Yeah, I just have one quick story on that because as a child, like I've been fed sugar since before I can remember. And I guarantee a lot of us on this call have also, it's just the way of life. It started when you were really, really young and it's continued throughout until, this day when you decided to quit. And I've actually gotten my brother on a sugar-free lifestyle and he was at work a couple weeks ago and it was a Friday and they had all these donuts and he was like, I hadn't eaten sugar in like 6 to 8 months, like real cane sugar, white sugar, the real processed gross stuff. And he said he ate a bite and he had a instant splitting headache. And he
Wow.
was like, I was so happy about that because I finally realized what it was doing to me. Like, because our bodies become so numb to it because we've been fed it for so long, we don't notice those things. Like you give kids sugar and they go absolutely bonkers and then they have a mood swing and then they crash. And that to us is looked at as normal. They don't get the headache, they get the other symptoms. Maybe they do get the headache, we don't know. But we become, like you said, we become numb to it over time. So it's not about, oh, I'm going to be so sensitive to sugar if I give it up. Well, so what? Like, we're not supposed to be consuming the amount we're consuming anyways.
It's so true, and I've seen it with the children, and then they get in trouble for being rambunctious. It's like, stop feeding him sugar. And then what about us? Like, man, I'm so sorry. That's not even me. Like, I don't know why I yelled at you like that. I don't know why I was so bitchy. Like, oh, did I have sugar? So this is a time to start journaling, even if haven't given up sugar completely, like just maybe until our May 7th course, you can start playing around with it and notice your mood swings, like mood swings. They call it that for a reason. Maybe it's tied to sugar. Maybe menstruation cramps can be tied to sugar. There's so many things we don't even realize, but when we give it up, we're like, wow, I feel my joints don't hurt anymore. I feel so much better. So if you, like Caitlin said, if you didn't get a chance to write it in your journal or write it down even in your phone, you can make it kind of as a screensaver on your phone or your computer. Like, what is your why for giving up sugar? Like, how do you want to feel? Like, maybe even just something like, I want to wake up feeling at 6 a.m. on my own without an alarm, feeling sharp and excited for my day. Like, that alone is like enough reason to give it up. But also, I want to see a little bit of the belly fat drop away. So some of the things we have is what sugar, like listed, so we'll go through them, is what does sugar do in the body? And we're talking about, like you said, Caitlin, white sugar, cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and agave. And I mean, in lesser numbers, but still paying attention to dates and a maple syrup and all these. Coconut sugar is the least offensive because it's a lower glycemic, but if you're doing a lot of it, it's still getting you on that hamster wheel of needing glucose. So anything that's making you like want to eat more of it, just pay attention to that. I make these cookies with stevia and they're good, but I don't feel the need to eat a ton of them because they don't cause that sugar addiction. They're more fat-based than sugar-based, which we'll do tomorrow. We're going to do our fat bombs and we'll show you exactly what we're talking about with that. But sugar in the brain, so when we see something like ice cream or we see, something we love, there's a dopamine release in the brain, and they've done studies for people like standing in line at Starbucks. It's the same idea. In the brain, before you even consume it, you get this high, and there's that hormone burst of quick energy, and then as soon as you eat it, you're like, oh, like you almost feel like you can relax for a minute, like I got my addiction. Like everybody knows that feeling. So it's not like, well, I don't notice that I get hyper when I eat sugar. I feel pretty good. But notice what it does after that. So after your glucose spikes and your blood sugar goes up, the insulin goes up, then you get what we talked about yesterday, the crash, which is your hormones are trying to balance the blood sugar, but instead of it just going, I'm going to balance you out, it goes, get everything on board to get that sugar out of the body, and it just creates this crash, and then we're left feeling sleepy and groggy, so we're either drinking more coffee with sugar in it, or some Starbucks treat, frappuccino thingy, and wondering why our butt's getting bigger, and wondering why we're feeling so moody, and wondering why we hate our jobs, and just all of the above. So it's this whole spike and crash thing, and that's what the body decides with that glucose coming in, like, I don't know what to do with this. She doesn't really need any more food at this time. He doesn't need any more energy. Let's just put it in the fat stores until we can figure out what to do with this. So that's why we gain weight so much more quickly by eating high glucose foods, high fructose foods, instead of when we're eating high fat foods, which sounds counterintuitive because you think, doesn't fat make you fat? And most people are understanding now that no, we actually use fat for fuel and we can burn it, but not until we get the sugar out. Like you can't be eating a ton of avocados and olive oil and all these amazing things and oh, it's so delicious while still eating ice cream and cookies, because the two together are kind of lethal. Like you need to either choose to be on that sugar burning hamster wheel with all your moods, or you need to choose to get into more low glycemic foods, fat burning mode, and watch your brain work better and your moods even out and everything just get better over time.
Mhm. Yeah, and that sugar, it does a lot in the brain, and the brain fog is actually something called neuroinflammation. So there's a lot of research out that some of these brain disorders like Alzheimer's and dementia, they're actually linked to a blood sugar imbalance. It's very similar to type 2 diabetes. It just doesn't show up that way. And it's actually causing that neuroinflammation in the brain that doesn't allow this, it's called autophagy. It's the brain's ability to eat up dead cells. And it's so critical for the brain, especially when it's aging, to have that cell turnover. And so they've shown in people with Alzheimer's and dementia, they don't have that ability because they're consistently eating sugar and they're consistently having that blood sugar imbalance. So neuroinflammation is something really, really serious, especially if you're wanting to save your brain and have a really healthy brain for the rest of your life. So I know that is a really big motivator for both Elena and I.
Yeah, I mean, I watched my mom die of Alzheimer's and it was really sad. And, uh, you know, she wasn't overweight at all. She was a very thin woman and she just loved her sugar in all its forms. And they do call it diabetes number 3. Some people are calling it that, and they're really doing the correlation. And there's now studies, and I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts and things where they're putting people on a low sugar diet, low carb diet, and the Alzheimer's is improving. The dementia is improving. They're getting more moments of clarity and it's reversing things. I don't know if they've been able to reverse it completely yet, but at least like if you do have a loved one, if you want to try that, it might be a really good thing to do. Just start feeding them super healthy foods like what we're going to teach you guys today and this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else, Caitlin? Some of the things it can lead to is obesity, insulin resistance, like you said, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver. I know of so many people that, have had experiences with liver like swelling up or just liver problems, and that's tied to sugar too. Clogged arteries, even our heart, like our heart attacks. I think heart attacks are still the number one killer of men, at least in the USA. So sugar, I mean, all we have to do is look at our diet, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and again, we're really referring to those white processed sugary foods. And we're going to really get into this deeper tomorrow, but things like gluten and wheat can also contribute to some of these health challenges because they are still spiking your blood sugar. So,
Yeah. So do we want to talk about the healthy sweeteners today, or do we want to save that for tomorrow, Caitlin? Because we mentioned that we're going to tell them what we do use for, like, it's not like you have to go without the taste of sweet things, but like
yeah.
what we use.
We're going to touch on that tomorrow, as well as like all of our, best tips and tricks for really creating this as a lifestyle. Because we have so many. I mean, this is what we teach in a lot of our 30-day detox programs. So let's save those two because you are going to be making a nice sweet treat tomorrow.
Right.
And today, the rest we're just going to cover, how you're going to feel when you do give up sugar, because we do have a lot of negatives, and we want to give some positives here, and then we'll jump into the soup recipe. But we want this to be as interactive as, we're here for you guys. We don't just want to, stand in our little offices and spout info at you. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, if you have any experience or anything that you want to share, please type in the chat. And if you want to come on and ask your question live at the end, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, and even if you're just resonating with what we're saying, going, yeah, I've totally been there. I've noticed the difference, or I've been on a yo-yo of giving up sugar and letting it go. Type it in the chat. Like, we're here because we want everybody else to see that they're not alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
So just feel free anytime. You don't have to do it now, but like as we go, and then we'll read it all out at the end. But yeah, let's talk a little bit just before I get into the recipe, a couple more things about how you're going to feel when you give up sugar, which we kind of have already said. But the one big thing for me is cavities. I grew up thinking I just had bad teeth. I had so many fillings. In fact, every single tooth, every single molar had a filling in it. And I've since switched them all out to non-amalgam fillings, so they're like more porcelain fillings. But now I go to the dentist and they're like, wow, because I don't go in every year even. I mean, you're supposed to go every 6 months, but because they want to x-ray me every time and because I just don't really need to, it costs $200 to get my teeth cleaned. I don't go in as often, and they're always like, wow, your teeth are great. Oh, no cavities. No, everything's looking good. And even I had a cracked tooth from an old filling, and he's like, oh, that's only going to last 6 months. And it's been 2 years now because he did a little like something in there, and yeah, it's fine. Like he put a little bonding in it. And so I'm like, yeah, why would I go in and have them tell me negative things when I'm not eating sugar? I'm eating super healthy. I'm eating a mineral rich diet. And the teeth is something we kind of feel like, oh my God, I'm so helpless. Like I have to go to the dentist and they, get the root canals and do all this stuff. And if you have a clean, healthy diet without sugar, I don't want to be like in the dental chair like for hours getting all this stuff done to my mouth. And you can avoid that, which is great. So having better teeth is a huge bonus to get.
Definitely. And you do things like oil pulling. We have so many tips and tricks for how to really take care of your oral health. But it really does, oops, I muted myself. It really does start with what you're eating, and eating a really high fat, high nutrient dense diet with natural calcium and zinc and all of that stuff. It's really just going to contribute to much better teeth health. And sugar really, it depletes and blocks mineral absorption. So not only does it create cavities, it's blocking the absorption of things like calcium and iron and zinc and things that keep your teeth, those roots, really, really healthy and strong.
Yeah. And then the next thing is that your food tastes better because if we're constantly putting white salt and sugar in the form of many forms on our food, that's our normal. And so when we let go of that and start like actually tasting, what does basil taste like? What does this broccoli soup taste like? What is, a salad that just has a natural dressing on it? You start to notice the flavors start to taste better and things become more alive. And when you taste a strawberry when you're not eating sugar, the strawberry is so sweet. Cucumbers are sweet. So the natural flavors of food will start to come out more because you're not constantly coating your body and your brain with sugar.
Absolutely. And again, we talked about the brain, but this is definitely one of my favorites. I love not having brain fog, and I lived with brain fog for most of my life up until the point where I decided to change things. So it's a very, yeah, it's debilitating. And I know the feeling, and I know how much clearer you can feel and how much more concentration is possible. The brain is an amazing tool if we give it the right things.
Yep. And I mean, who doesn't want to be more sharp and more alert and actually be excited about life? Um, and then also, I mentioned it already, but you reduce your chances of diabetes, heart problems, depression. We didn't really say much about, but depression is hugely tied to sugar. For me, even in these 22 years of like being on this clean diet, when I would eat agave, I didn't know the raw foodists were all touting agave. Like, oh, now you have this sweetener that's not honey that you can use in all your cheesecakes and in everything, and it's kind of flavorless. And I would crash, and then I would be depressed for a whole day. And it was more like melancholy. It wasn't like a deep depression. I don't want to, be rude to people that are in real depression, but it was definitely like, oh. And it was completely 100% related to that agave. And when I finally kind of got the clue, like, you need to give up agave, this was before even people were talking about how bad agave is. I was like, oh, that was what was causing the problems. I didn't even know. So yeah, it definitely can create some depression. And you can just kind of, since if your brain's foggy, you also can get dizzy more easily. So you can get more injuries. You can fall more easily. You can just, like, your blood system, your healing system isn't working as well. So even if you get an injury, it doesn't heal as quickly.
And I think the most important one that we didn't touch on yet is the gut health. So when our gut health is out of balance and we have these candida, yeast overgrowth, or sugar bugs in there, it also can cause depression. So getting our guts back online by eliminating sugar can really, really help with sugar cravings, because you don't have that. And you're able to produce your happy hormones like serotonin and dopamine, which is a lot harder for the gut to produce when it's compromised.
Exactly.
And I just
I
wanted to say, Stacy commented, she said, sugar is harder to avoid than carbs. Sugar is insidious. I totally agree, because it's hidden in everything. And she said, banana in smoothies, honey, maple syrup. Honestly, I just want to touch on this quickly. Elena and I are in the works of creating an awesome food production line, because we both cannot find any products out there that just contain stevia or even just contain coconut sugar. There's nothing that you can go and buy in the store right now that isn't loaded with sugar, even if it's the healthy sweeteners. If you actually see, oh, this is just sweetened with honey, oh, great. And then you look at the back and it's like 30 grams per serving. Like, that's quite a bit. Even though honey can be a healthy sweetener, when we're consuming it in that quantity, it's not healthy anymore. So
Yep, it still does the blood sugar spike. So that's the thing I talked about yesterday, is testing your blood sugar. And that's what you really want to notice. If you can't feel it in your body, which I feel it immediately, like my throat constricts and I get a headache, even from honey, too much honey, you can start testing your blood sugar, and then you'll know for sure, like, what is sugar? What are these sweet foods doing in my body?
yes.
So I'm going to turn my video off, Caitlin, and
Yep.
switch over to the kitchen mode here.
Sounds good. Well, Kat just said her intention in giving up all sugar to shift her body to take the new, much higher frequency for me. And I totally, totally resonate with that. There is a different frequency when we're mind is clear. Meditations become easier. I know that sounds weird, but you're able to really drop deeper into meditation, because without the brain fog and the distractions in the brain and or the blood sugar imbalances in the brain, that neuroinflammation, it's a lot easier to get super, super clear headed and, yeah, change your frequency. I really, really love that.
All right, I'm ready. I'm just going to turn
She's ready.
my camera on.
Thank you, Stacy and Kat, for commenting. I'd have to say this is our quietest group thus far. Usually we have a ton of comments and stuff here. I'm going to put you on spotlight. There you go.
Cool. So I'm centered. That looks good. I'm going to start my Facebook Live, because I'm just going to do the Facebook Live for the kitchen. Look at, I got all my dishes in the background. Don't look. Okay, so here we go. So just give me 1 second here. Hello, welcome on Facebook Live. I'm here today with Caitlin Louise, and we are teaching you guys how to get off of sugar. And today is day 2 of our sugar-free challenge. And today I'm going to be making a soup. And believe it or not, this soup can help with sugar cravings because, as Caitlin and I were just talking about, it's so mineral rich that you are nourishing your cells. So a lot of times when we're craving sugar, our ancient reptilian brain thinks is fruit. Like fruit would have lots of vitamins and minerals in it, like a natural fruit. So like back in the wild, you'd be like, oh, I need to go find something sweet, like a berry or something. But now we just turn it into our brains of like, I want sugar. So having a mineral-rich soup, like I'm going to show you today, is going to be such a great way to get rid of these sugar cravings. So I'm going to move everything so it's in my screen so everybody can see it. I'm going to use the Instant Pot today. So for those of you guys who are new to the Instant Pot, a lot of people I notice are selling them. I'm just going to turn this off and turn it on again. Selling them on Facebook Marketplace, or you can find them used. I have actually seen them in a thrift store, an older model, so you can get one. And what I like about this is it just makes makes cooking super easy. So, I don't know why it's got the 30, but I'm going to start out, just in case you're new to the Instant Pot, by just sauteing. So I'm going to push the saute button. I'm going to cancel everything, push the saute button. And I'm going to start with some coconut oil. We like to use coconut oil for cooking because it is more heat stable. Olive oil is not so much for something like this because it's going to be too hot for the olive oil. It's going to not be so good for it. I would saute easily, quickly in a skillet with some olive oil and on low heat, but in my Instant Pot, coconut oil is my best choice. And then I'm going to put in a clove of garlic and some onion, but first I want to start with the onion and get that sauteing in there and just kind of get it going, stirring around. I like to use wooden spoons with my cooking. One, if you leave it in there, it's not going to burn your hand. And 2, it's just natural. I love using wooden things. Just run it through it won't hurt it. Run it through the dishwasher every once in a while just to get the bacteria, anything off of the spoons. But usually I just wash them with hot water and soap, dish soap. So that's going to stir around in there. While that's happening, we're going to grate some ginger. I've got a little cube of ginger. So if you don't have this recipe in front of you, if you're on Facebook Live, it's about a tablespoon of coconut oil, a half of an onion, or a quarter of an onion if you're doing low carb. Because onions do have a few carbs, but not enough to worry about. And onion give things such great flavor. So I'm just, if you can see this falling off here, I'm just grating the ginger into it. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, just grate some ginger in there. And then the same with the garlic. You can just use a grater or a garlic press. Or you can even just chop your garlic. You don't have to use this microplaner if you don't have one. I have all the kitchen gadgets, of course, because I'm a chef, so don't feel like you have to go break the bank. You can totally do this recipe in a regular pot on your stove as well. Probably on medium to low heat. And I find that tapping it gets all that stuff off the back. I see a lot of people like digging, but if you just tap it, you don't have to dig it off the back. Okay, so the next ingredient, this is already starting to brown up. Stir it a little bit. And then the next ingredient, so that's the first 4 ingredients. I'm going to turn it now. I'm going to cancel it and turn it to soup. I'm going to put the soup button on, and I'm going to add all these ingredients. So the first one is 2 cups of water. And this is my spring water that I collect, but use filtered water. And a cup of coconut milk, and I got this organic coconut milk here. And it doesn't have any guar gum in it. It's by a company called Natural Value, I guess. Is that the company name? It says Natural Value on the front, so maybe that's the name of the company. But anyway, you can find it even at Trader Joe's has coconut milk without guar gum. So put the coconut milk in. And then, this is just such an easy recipe. The biggest part is just getting the ingredients out. Then we want to start putting in all our seasonings. I love apple cider vinegar in soup. So this is a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. It gives it some tang, it gives it some flavor. It like brings out more flavor by adding a little dash. So remember that if you've made a salad dressing or you've made a recipe, like a savory recipe, and you're like, it needs something, but it's not salt. Sometimes a little sour, like lemon or apple cider vinegar, will really like spike the flavor and make it taste super good. And apple cider vinegar has a little bit of sweetness to it, so it will like kind of bring in some of that sweetness. And now we have our seasonings. We've got a teaspoon of onion powder, coriander powder, which is basically cilantro seeds ground, and cumin powder. So this is not really, the flavor is not really Mexican, and it's not really, I don't know, it's just its own flavor balance. It's so good. And then salt. I'm using the Himalayan salt, or actually I'm using the real salt today, which is full of minerals. We don't want to use white salt, we want to use a mineral salt. And then the next is now to put in all of our vegetables. So we've got a quarter of a green cabbage. You want to use green in this versus red, because when you blend up your soup, it'll be a kind of a weird color if you're mixing green and purple together and then blending it. So a quarter of a cabbage. It says 4 cups of kale leaves. And I'm using dinosaur kale that I've already washed. But really you can use any kind of kale. I like this kale because you can tell by the color of green, it's super alkalizing and it's mineral rich. And we keep talking about mineral rich because our brains need those minerals. And when the minerals are in our body, then we're satisfied. We don't crave things. I bet you anything, if you start eating stuff like this when you have a sugar craving, believe it or not, eat a bowl of this soup, you won't want the sugar anymore. This is broccoli, and this is like kind of a young broccoli, which I love because I can even use the stems in this because they're very kind of dainty, except for that end part. And then throw in the whole head of broccoli. You could switch it out and use cauliflower. So this recipe is very interchangeable. You could use more cabbage and just broccoli, so half of a cabbage and a head of broccoli, or head of cauliflower with some cabbage, or not even do the cabbage. You could do Brussels sprouts in there. You can mix and match. So whatever vegetable you have on hand. I'm very much someone who just likes to use what I've got on hand. So I'm going to go ahead and put this lid on. The Instant Pot is so easy. And then it just will have a time on there, and it'll just do its own thing, and it'll beep when it's ready. But I was smart and made a batch ahead of time. So I'm going to show you guys that one. I'm going to get my cutting board out of the way here. And this soup has been cooling off for a little bit, which is good. And so now it looks like that. It's all cooked down. And today I'm going to use a glass blender versus a plastic blender. This is kind of a new thing that Caitlin's been doing for a while, but it's kind of newer to me. Is, I don't know what that one is. I gotta unplug something, hold on. But using glass with hot things, which makes sense. Like, we don't really want to blend hot things in plastic, do we? So the recipe says that you can either do the whole thing blended, or you can do 3/4 of it blended, depending on if you want your soup chunky or if you want it to be completely smooth. So it's totally up to you. I might leave a few chunks in there just for kind of something nice as far as texture. So it looks like that's enough for the blender right now, because I don't want to overfill it either, because if the lid pops off, you could burn yourself. So I'm going to just pulse it. And it's really up to you how creamy you make it. You can make it super creamy or leave it a little bit chunky. And there we go, voila. I'm going to pour that into my pot. And that's it. And I can just serve it up in a bowl. It's pretty, it's really green, I like the color. And let me get my bowl out. I have a kind of a little bonus thing from yesterday. Anybody who watched yesterday and saw me make cheese, we're going to put the cheese on top, and then I'm also going to show you how I made my, I dehydrated some of it and made it into like a cheesy topping. So there's my bowl of soup. This is definitely a meal. So this will probably make about 4 servings. It's enough soup to make 4 servings. And so what I did with the cheese that I made yesterday, is, if you guys who didn't see it, you can go back and watch yesterday's video, is I took it and I put some in a bowl and I watered it down because I wanted it to be more like a drizzle and not so thick and pasty. So then I'm just going to take this cheese and drizzle it onto my soup. And you can kind of do little, however you want. And then just for making it really pretty to serve, I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to making things look nice, is wipe the side of the bowl. It got a little splash, and then use the back of your spatula or the front part and just swirl it a little bit. Kind of make it look a little pretty, like swirly. You guys have seen us do that with the cheesecakes. So now I've got this really lovely swirl on top. And the last thing I can do is, so yesterday I made all this cheese sauce and I was saying, oh, I already had some made and I didn't need so much, so I decided to dehydrate it. So this is from an Excalibur dehydrator, but really any dehydrator will work. You just spread it out like a thin, not that thin, like eighth to a quarter inch paste. And as you can see, as I'm turning it here, I'm going to get this so you can see it on Facebook, is I'm just kind of going to crumble it into a cheese crumble. I mean, I could just pick up a piece like this and eat it, and it's super delicious. It's got all the flavors, and the flavors have been concentrated. So what I do is, this is a drying sheet that you can buy to go with your dehydrator, but I'm just crumbling it in there. And then I've got a jar. Oh my gosh, that looks amazing. I've got a jar with some that I had dried earlier, and I'll put it in the jar. But I can just take this now, like it's like a Parmesan cheese, honestly. And let me hold that up. Just sprinkle it over the soup, and it's like ridiculous. Like, who would ever feel deprived eating that, right?
No,
So
that's awesome.
make your own awesome, flavorful, yummy, delicious soup at home, and even do a cheesy crumble on the top.
That looks like the perfect lunch.
Yay!
Yes. Well, does anyone have any questions about the recipe? And if you do, type them in. You can unmute yourself as well. And also, if you're on Facebook Live with Elena and you haven't signed up for the challenge, in order to get this 3-day recipe book, you got to register. So go to purejoyplanet.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can sign up and you'll get instant access to these replays and to your recipe book.
Yes, and if you hear her on Facebook Live, you need to sign up for the challenge by going to purejoyplanet.com and scrolling to the bottom. And you'll get all the recipes, and you got to sign up.
And as part of, doing the challenge, it's time for you to get in the kitchen and make this recipe. So if you haven't put your name on that challenge spreadsheet, I'll drop it in the chat right now. Be sure to put your name on there. I see a lot of names. And go in the kitchen and make your recipe. So make your cheese from yesterday and make this soup from today, and snap us a photo and post it on the Facebook group so that we can see it. And that's part of getting involved in the challenge and being part of the bonuses and stuff that we're going to talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow's day 3 already, and we have an awesome little sweet treat for you, a sweet, not sugar treat for you tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to do some awesome gingerbread fat bombs. So I'm super excited to show you guys that. We'll talk more about the sugar alternatives tomorrow, so be sure to tune in. And any comments? Anybody? I see some things popping up.
Estella made her cheese. We had a few people post their recipes in the Facebook group, and Layla did it as well, and so did Hallie. But Estella said the cheese was delicious. So that creamy macadamia cheese sauce. Yay! And then we also had a comment, how can I adapt or SOS free? Do you know what that means?
SOS. No, can you say what SOS is? Maybe the miso? That's the only thing I can think of.
No sugar, salt, oil.
Yeah, there's no sugar in it. There's no oil in it. You would just take out the salt.
Yeah, good point. No sugar, no oil. Super easy whole food recipes, that's for sure. All right, well, we can't wait to see your broccoli soup. And I know Elena's going to have a fabulous lunch.
Maybe she was talking about today's soup. So for the oil, just use water to saute your onions. That's the only place I used oil, is for the sauteing. Okay, we'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific. And can't wait to share more stuff with you.
Yes, see you all tomorrow. And be sure to post your recipes. We love to see them. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.